Hello everyone and welcome to AP World History Virtual, where we're going to do the entire class online this year. So I thought what better way to start than to unbox the class, see what's inside, see how it works. So let's get going. Now this is the very latest of many editions. It's called AP World History Modern. So let's get into it and see what we got. Seems to be packaged really well. And here we have the instructions. Now I'm going to mention a few things in here that will be very helpful for you, but for the most part, this is for your teacher. And next we have time. I mean, how can you look at history without time? History is everything that happened in the past, and we need some way to organize it. So, although we will study some early things in this class, the basic content for this class starts in the year 1200. So let's take a short trip across the timeline of this class. Starting with the year 1200, we'll look at a snapshot of the world at that time, all the major empires and states and the networks that connected them. The next era begins around 1450, the fall of Constantinople and the voyage of Columbus. We'll look at massive land-based and sea-based empires that would encompass the entire globe. Between 1750 and 1900, we'll look at independence movements and revolutions, both political and economic, and how much of the world got colonized in the pursuit of resources for factories. And from 1900 to the present, we'll study world conflicts, the Cold War, all these colonies becoming brand new nations, and the intense economic integration of the entire globe. So that's the basic timeline for the course, but we still have a few more things left in here. This one's kind of heavy. Historical developments, and these are kind of a big deal. There's a lot in here, and this is the actual stuff you're going to learn this year. Now you saw some of these in the timeline that I just went over a few seconds ago, but during the year we're going to open this up and learn the historical developments that took place between 1200 and the present. So there's one more thing in here. Let's see what we have. Learning objectives. Ooh, that sounds so schooly. But in reality, these are simply tasks that you have to perform. It's content from the historical developments with some type of skill, like comparing and contrasting, talking about changes or what stayed the same, or looking at cause and effect. So the unboxing is done. Here we have the whole package, the whole course. And it may seem a bit confusing still about how this fits together, so I'm going to do something that few men would dare ever do. I'm going to go back and try to find those instructions. We got this. So here's how this works. Remember those chunks of history we saw in the timeline? Well, every one of them has topics that look like this, and they tell us exactly what we should be learning. So let's take a look. Here's one of those learning objectives we unpacked. Notice it tells us a skill we're going to have to perform, and here it's a skill of causation, or explaining causes or effects. So when you're learning this topic, in this time period, you're going to have to explain the intellectual and cultural effects of networks of exchange, and that means trade. Well, how are you supposed to know that? Well, it's right here in the historical development. The historical development points out the content that helps us perform the task of the learning objective. And in some cases, we have these suggested examples as well. Think of these illustrative examples as a menu. You should know at least one or two of them, but you don't have to know them all. I mean, who eats the whole menu? Now, when we put all the topics from a single time period together, it looks like this. Each of these topics has a page explaining learning objectives, or the tasks, and the historical developments needed to complete it. Here are all the ones that make the time period 1200 to 1450. And by the way, there's a link to all the topic pages in the description of the video below. You should probably bookmark it, as we're going to use it a lot this year. So it's out of the box. AP World History Modern. And you can see already that this course is much different than the typical history course. We do so much more than just memorizing dates and names. We make historical arguments here. And the best way to study for this, to recap, is to take the topic pages, look at the learning objective and turn it into a task or a question, and use the historical developments to answer that question. So to help you dig in a little bit more and understand this, in the description to this video there's a link to a scavenger hunt that'll walk you through some of the topic pages and have you identify some of those parts. Our next video is going to be about making a historical argument, so we will see you then.